last class. So what we're going to do, we're going to just briefly introduce global Englishes. And again, concepts that you all know. It's just to kind of set the context for our considerations. We're going to look a little bit at the relation of global Englishes as a concept paradigm, but individually as well, to English language education, to the context of higher education in which English for academic purposes holds a central role. Okay. And we're just going to try and discuss some proposal for change and just have some further considerations. I'm going to check a little bit of chat in case, okay. Good. So global Englishes. Again, I think you all know these concepts, but so global, perhaps some of you don't. So global English is an umbrella term that includes world Englishes, which refers to regional variants, not necessarily within countries, but also national standards, across the world. It also includes English as an international language. So, the global English that it's now in all parts of our life and society, from whatever business context to education at this point, if you consider, and English as a lingua franca instead, which looks more at the its conversational role between speakers of different L1s. So the idea of this global English umbrella, that it's been introduced several years ago, and it's supported by a large amount, many researchers, let's say, increasingly, is that all these aspects, all these new Englishes have pedagogical implications. Now, what do you think? Do they have or not? I'd like to hear your opinion. Do you think the fact that English is spoken in so many different ways, and apart from the spoken in terms of accents or whatever, do world Englishes, which refers to specific national forms of English, such as, for example, Irish English, or English as international language, or English as a lingua franca. So this way, these forms in which English is used, do these forms have or not pedagogical implications, or should or not have pedagogical implications when we talk about syllabus design, language testing, or, what do you think?
Can I say my opinion concerning this?
Yes, please, absolutely.
Yeah, well, actually, concerning the global Englishes, this idea of global Englishes, unfortunately, does not have anything to do with the curriculum design or anything, especially here in Egypt and in the Eastern countries, in the Arab world. We only focus on the American English or the British English when it comes to the curriculum and so on. But any other forms of English, no, at all. And even the other accents are not taught or being exposed to by the students, except maybe in the IELTS exam. Sometimes there are some accents in the listening that could be maybe not very British or American. It could be like other accents, like maybe Asian accent or African accent or anything like that.
Yes.
Or Indian. Yeah.
That's true, and thank you for that. And this is a reality that it's in many other places. It's this is a changing situation, evolving situation. My question is, then, what do you think? It's clear that for the moment, you know, the situation what it is, or in Egypt or in other countries and so forth. But what do you think? If you were to, so we've seen earlier syllabus design, and we've seen language testing, and we've seen how important it is to make clear statements regarding what we test in order to, or what we teach in order to, you know, be fair, be coherent. What do you think in general? What do you think, you guys, apart from what is possible or not, what do you think?
Well, can I say my opinion? This
Please.
is Sam here. Hi.
Please,
Okay.
absolutely.
I personally like the idea of global Englishes because it changes the attitude towards language. I personally like that. It changes your mentality when you are teaching your students. You focus on communicative abilities. Of course, you teach them what is right or what is wrong grammatically, but it enables you to deal with other varieties they might encounter when they're watching a movie, for example. So I personally believe it should be integrated. Like what Yumna said, it's not taken into account here in Egypt, unfortunately, but it should be integrated, and we can start with our own mentalities. I mean, I remember we took this in the last excelling course, and it changed my perspective towards teaching, even when I'm teaching anything, actually, in order to include more varieties in everything. So this is, it's teaching changing. So I think it should be integrated, and we can start with changing our own attitudes to what we are teaching to our students.
Okay, thank you, Wessam. What that's a very important statement, and it pleases me that, you know, we had such an influence on you, and I hope on others as well. At the end, it's a matter of, you know, when we think of our learners, not all of our learners will use English in a business context. Maybe some of our learners, some of your Egyptian learners may travel and decide to maybe live in another country, or may engage in a relationship with an English-speaking person from a different country. So there will be different contexts, different situations of language use. Not all are the same. So it's not a matter of not taking a position towards a standard. If we want to teach a standard, it's more a matter of including these realities, which are realities, in exactly.
Yeah.
Any other, you know, I don't know, comments on the topic? I hope this as our last session, we will try and make it as commentary as possible, so that it keeps you, you know, engaged. Well, if there are no comments, we can continue, we can go further. And I just want to reestablish why there is such a variety in English, and the fact that all languages undergo change one way or another, from my language to all other languages. And this because throughout their existence, along with the community, the social community that uses the language, there are different types of pressures and situations of contact. But we're talking about hundreds and maybe thousands of years, so things change. They can be fast changing effects, or maybe they can be long, they may require a long time to actually make any difference in the language, but they do happen. And these type of changes you've seen already, they're called endogenous and exogenous. Now, English has lived many exogenous forces. So has to change from outside more than from inside. Not the change is not necessarily from the internal of the language, of the communities, of the national communities, but more from the outside, from the contact that the languages and international languages, and global language has went through. And we've talked about this before, and I'm sure that even those that were not present to the previous program are aware of how world English is, how the spread of English has occurred, and there are different approaches to identifying and to categorizing and to, you know, try to analyze this spread. Cartru's concentric circle model looks at the inner circle, the standards English, British, American, and the expanding circle, which is norm dependent. And then we have, the outer circle, okay? Sorry, the outer circle is on the page. Jenkins as well mentions about a two diaspora model, and I'm not going to go into that because we know clearly that we have the main standards and we have what is called main standards again, and we have the different stages. The point is that where the language contact happened, we had a dominant language, which is English, and we had the other language which has come in contact. And those languages, they need to communicate. So from pidgins to creoles to actual languages when independence has occurred in these states. Therefore, here, it's what these researchers and, what this trend of research and, approach to this phenomena wants to say with this is that it's not a form, an accent, an approach, or an idea. It's a reality of a transformational language in which you depart from two things and you come to middle way, and that middle language, the pidgin and the creole, then when it's established and it undergoes existence through several generations, it becomes a real established language. When there is a grammatical system structure to a language, that becomes a different language on its own, such as Australian English or other Englishes that are around the world. So basically, so these are the main ways of conceptualizing global Englishes. And Collegue and Rose, among with others, but they developed this model again that you've seen in previous session, and it's just a reminder, where they include the different channels of spread from the spread of English to to colonization, to slavery, to trade exploitation, but they also bring in a very important channel, which has kind of gained force after the Second World War, which is globalization, the movement, the spread, and all this through English, okay? Therefore, again, if through colonization and slavery, we got to have these creoles, pidgins, creoles, and then different languages in established independent countries with established languages, established systems. Through globalization, we are getting already to a first, second generation of what it is another language with another form, which is English and lingua franca. So the point is, these researchers say, if those languages become languages, established languages, English as a lingua franca, would it not be an established language as well if it's looked at through this lens of contact? But that being said, we also look at the concept of English for academic purposes, we'll be looking afterwards in a second, to say that globalization as well, it's English and globalization, higher education and English for academic purposes are so tightly connected, okay? So that's why it's important. The question becomes the question of whether introducing and exposing learners to these forms becomes important because of this connection between globalization, different forms of Englishes, and higher education, international higher education with many different people, and English for academic purposes, where a way of thinking and writing academic assignments may not correspond to the many ways of being international students with many different backgrounds and repertoires and so forth. So that's to connect it to English to academic purposes. So this is what I was saying. I was saying earlier about English as a lingua franca, is that again, it's it becomes, because there are morphological and structural changes to the language that persist across uses up to getting to a first, second generation. So established, solidified changes. The question becomes, how solid is this concept of English lingua franca, and why and should it not be introduced or exposed if most of the students, most of the English speakers are non-native English speakers? Obviously, this has not happened for many reasons, including the fear of losing linguistic diversity, and the idea that English itself can be quite destructive in terms of other languages. So getting closer and closer to our connection with English for academic purposes, when we think of English as an international global language, I mean, the context in, maybe I can ask you, so you can tell me, how is English used in your context? How do you, or how are English language speakers in your context, how do they perceive English? Do they perceive it as a second language, a foreign language? Is it perceived as as a tool, as a means of identity expression, or as a tool or of financial, economical, political, social achievement? How is it perceived, English, and how do you perceive it yourself? Maybe, if you want, whatever you prefer. Perhaps it's a bit. What do you think? I'm gonna. Any comments on that? Is it maybe a bit too? The question arises from the fact that English is perceived. Yes, Kwesam, I see your mic on.
I think it's a very difficult question to answer in just a few words, because we will go back to the idea of language attitudes, and we took actually a session on language attitudes the second and third day.
Yes,
and we talked about language and identity, and how we perceive language as part of our identity, and we referred to English as a way to be prestigious, or so. And when you talk English in a bad way, then you come from a poor background, and so on. So it's a very intricate and complicated question.
Yes.
And that's why I like the idea of global Englishes, because it will change that, hopefully.
Yes, probably that's why it shakes a little bit of positions and ideas, because it's a bit it's probably an extreme.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So what is presented here too is what exists, and what it's growing very fast. If you want to, like, just for curiosity, if you want to go and have a whatever Google search on global English is, and the amount of work that is across all levels of language education as well now. So yeah, I understand. So it's a process, but for everyone in different times. I see so many people. I see more people have joined. So I'm just wondering, should we take I shouldn't interrupt the class. Yes, I will wait until the end. Sorry, the recording. I wanted to take the screenshot now, but maybe I can wait until the end. So yeah, so the idea is that English is an international language, and with its global force, really, has the fact that English has spread so much in this way has led to an increasingly more valued, let's say, engagement with English for academic purposes, or better, because English is an international global language, English for academic purposes has gained growing importance, especially in delivery of successful higher education and experiences, adaptation process, acculturation process. So there's a huge array of applied linguistic concepts that you are aware of and you've learned as well through this week that become compact around that English for academic purposes, which is the English used in academic context. However, increasingly it's been argued that probably even the academic context should as well consider this variety, because research happens in Australia, research happens in other places of the world. So there are different forms of expressing in those different worlds. Very, very complex matter, which we are not discussing now. But the idea is that globalization of English, it means linguistic change, and English as taking root in many new territories. And today, it's really about a myriad of dialects, accents, and varieties. And language attitudes, as we said, play a very important role in how what we make of these aspects in our language education. Nonetheless, we have seen just earlier today how important it is to actually define clearly what we test and how we test, but what kind of English, what kind of, and what, So global English paradigm acknowledges that the majority of English speakers are non-native speakers. And as a majority, they have the right to decide which English to use. Research, even in my context, but research has as well increasingly started to look at the voice of international students in Western context and other contexts. And the fact, and increasingly, research has shown that students, international students, claim their voice, want to express. So sometimes academic writing in those specific standards becomes very tight for those who express in different ways. So the fact that there are so many varieties, whether we like it or not, has implications for language learning goals, language teachers, and the curriculum. So especially with the multilingual term, social term, and all the terms possible in research. So by saying that, it's clear that the linguistic, cultural, functional diversity that is associated with English today really challenges some of the fundamental assumptions of English language teaching. And for many, requires that we revisit our pedagogical practices. It does come with a long process of, again, attitudes transformation and so forth. But these are thoughts, initial thoughts. So as far as regarding English language education, we have seen and we know we're aware that currently positive attitudes to native English speakers is still highly present. And although many researchers advocate the inclusion of the different Englishes, it's still difficult and probably it will take a while. However, it is pursuing. And Mackenzie, for example, in support of this reality, mentions he sees unreasonable to impose a single or a restricted range of pedagogical models for English language classrooms, when we have this, so with this varied reality of language. Sorry, that's my that's my C. Apologize. So researchers of English as an international language, World English is, and English as a lingua franca, have called for an overhaul of English language testing teaching practices. The role of language assessment, which has always been inextricably linked with pedagogical practice, is central to achieving this overhaul. Assessment practices have a powerful hold over English language teaching due to the use of English proficiency tests as gatekeepers for entry into a variety of social domains where English plays a role as an international language. So what does this quote tell you? What do you think about this quote, guys? It was a long quote, maybe you want to reread it. Oh, I see some expressions of it's beautiful to see you. Okay, so what do you think? You know, it's late, you're tired. What is it?
I think it sums up what we have been saying, that unfortunately it's global Englishes are not integrated in the way we teach, but we need to do it. So,
yes. Yeah. And what is the key? What appears to be the solution to this problem from this code? And this is a code that is based on a study. So Rose and Sirba have completed a complex study of higher education institutions and the use of English as international language in this context. So they seem to be giving a solution, or maybe to point out where the problem lies in terms of, you know, how come is it so difficult to? Why is it difficult to go beyond, you know, what has been so far? And can you see anything there that may, or anyone else
maybe change on the institutional level? They're talking about the assessment practices.
Exactly. So
maybe they're suggesting change.
Exactly. So essentially what they point out here is that they point out that assessment practices are generally the ones that are gatekeepers. So if assessment practices are changed, again, how we've seen earlier, by defining clearly what we test and why and how, then, and supporting them with, you know, with the reality of the social reality of what today the use of the language is, then, you know, the possibility of change can occur, and has been shown through the assessment of these universities and places where the, you know, this research was conducted, that it's there that the change can occur basically into the assessment practice. And the assessment practice, as we've seen, it involves a huge responsibility, social, ethical, and so forth. And this is what is referred to through that, to the various responsibilities, and it can be, this responsibility can be performed from the smaller level to the bigger level, basically. Now, when we think of English as an academic purposes, field of study, it refers to so the study of English for the purpose of participating in higher education, and it's about using text, spoken, written, that occur in academic contexts and include discourses that surround and give rise to such text. So again, if we consider that at the base of what we test, or the syllabus and materials that we develop, are the text texts that we use, how easy it is indeed to then enact this change, gradual change, by providing multiple source texts. Sorry. English for academic purposes in higher education has gained a lot of, as I said, momentum because of the connection between globalization, English, and the internalization of higher education. So there are extreme factors, ideological, economic, social, and political factors that influences that have shaped higher education and English for academic purposes. And we don't need to go through them because we've mentioned from the attitudes to being the language of the economy to being, language of the power and so forth. These have shaped English for academic purposes as well. And through this change as well, English for medium instruction courses have increasingly become spread across the world. Therefore, including in Egypt, therefore, the question of the inclusion or not of the reality of global Englishes in English for academic purposes becomes a reality. Ding and Bruce, they say that in tandem with these governmental priorities related to higher education in developed countries, the worldwide perception that competence in English and English medium university education will confer economic advantage and enhance employment opportunities appears widespread everywhere elsewhere, such as in developing non-English speaking developed countries. So the idea is that English and English medium instruction really is centered on globalization and on the perceptions that we have about languages and the value, the prestige that we give, as you were saying. Now, just 1 second. Basically, some proposal for change. I've already introduced this in a limited way 2 years ago. Basically, Galway and Rose, they suggest moving from English for English ELT, the classical English ELT, or what we understand in it, with it, to GLT, like including global Englishes. This process, however, involves a lot of elements, including material design, views of ownership of the language, role models, and as well a change in those who teach it. So, as Wissam was saying, it's all about gradual individual
mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Mentality, yes.
Yeah, so it's a gradual individual change that produces a holistical change. One thing that when we talk of when this strand talks about the change, they one of the difficulties that this change encounters there is Reem, I think you have the mic on and it's a bit noisy. Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. No problem. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. So this change, as I, so one of the fears, the most encountered when a change of this type is introduced is that maybe that means that we teach our methods, that we change our methods, teaching methods, we change our social constructs and educational constructs. Whereas here, what is being said is that the assumptions about the English language are the ones that ought to be changed, basically. And if those assumptions at the basis change, then that change will permeate the entire system of English language teaching or English for learning purposes. So Galway and Rose, they provide a brief, I'm trying a little bit because I have things that cover, a brief overview of how a classical ELT versus a GLT, the change would be in terms of kind of not on changing this perception of the language or values and regarding the language. So in ELT, our basic, oh, sorry, guys. The target interlocutor is the native English speakers. In GLT, it's all English users. Like, for example, myself, I'm in an English speaking context, and I'm a non-English native speaker person. Probably more than half of the people I encounter and I engage with, and also in research and in work, are non-native English speakers, okay? So again, there are realities that are even in English-speaking countries. So the concept here is, if you set in, when you develop your syllabus or your language test, if you set your target in the target interlocutor, so the view that you take on the language ability and or competence is real world language use. And if the real world language use context involves English of multiple forms and variants, then the idea is the interlocutor then should be seen as that. And here you can see different other aspects. We have standard English as a norm, diverse, flexible, multiple forms. This is again a proposal. It's not meant to be what, this is one of the many proposals that are brought in along with this phenomenon. Teachers, for example, again, from the non-native English speakers to native English speakers, to actually going to in GLT qualified competent teachers are very, very important. And so on means assessment criterion, which we've seen what is language competence. So assessment criterion with in a standard viewing syllabus sees accuracy in terms of language skills or language speaking according to prescriptive standards. Whereas GLT sees the assessment, the assessment of criterion base of communicative competencies, which is increasingly becoming a reality a bit everywhere. So, and one of the most important of these aspects as well, it's considering the multilingual, translingual aspect that is now, demonstrated through research, that English language learning or language learning does not occur in a monolingual fashion. It's always in interaction with all the other languages that we have in our system. So from the curriculum point of view, let's say you are developing your English language course for your students in Egypt. And if you remember, this curriculum is a cycle. It includes analysis, setting goal and objectives, syllabus, methodology, assessment, evaluation. A GLT perspective, so perspective, now the G global, it can also be excluded if that provokes some kind of, particular attitudes. It's not the word that makes the difference. Here the researchers say that It's the content, the concept that makes the difference. So when we perform a needs analysis, now, can I ask maybe language teachers, English language teachers in the group, but not necessarily just English language teachers, to perform the needs analysis of their learners according to this this example? Let me see. I'm gonna ask Aya. Maybe she's here, and I don't know if she's. Are you a English language teacher, Aya? If I remember well, you are. I may not. Okay, maybe you know I got the wrong moment. So any other language teacher that would like to comment on this or would like to help me, take me through this? So who's the language teachers? Can you, English language teacher, can you, or who has taught English language so far? Can you just thumbs up or whatever, hand up in, I don't see any. Okay, I see Wesam, I see Yoma, I see Noran. Okay, thank you. Panse, beautiful. And okay, so is it, may I ask, you know, maybe Noran, someone who has not, you know, if you want to say, if you want to help, or Nora, or, and let me just see who is there, who else was, and Panse, Nora and Panse, would you like, Nora and Panse, would you like to help me with this? So, needs analysis of your students, Egyptian students, oh, sorry. So think of your language, your English students, your Egyptian students. Did they, I mean, talking about the past, or you know, the classes that you had, or the classes that you will have, will your students need to use English as a lingua franca, so among speakers of other languages? Who are their likely future interlocutors? Vincent, can you say maybe in your...
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please? I'm sorry.
So basically, I would like us to do, not necessarily just you two guys, everyone, maybe it's easier like that, a needs analysis of your, let's say, of the classical Egyptian student cohort that learns English in Egypt, in the institutions in which you are. So who are the likely future interlocutors? Wesam, your students. Who will they speak with?
Well, I try to make them speak with me, but I think they're not.
But in the future, when we talk about needs analysis, we talk about, so when we say needs analysis, why are the students learning English? Okay, if you remember. So they are learning the English. What's the purpose? So they're learning English for academic purposes because they are aiming to, you know, go to university.
Teachers, we translators mainly.
Okay.
The of my, yes, of the faculty where I work, they want to be either teachers of English or translators. Some of them might want to pursue an academic career and register for an MA and then a PhD and so on. So,
okay. So the likely interlocutor are Egyptian people?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. International maybe as well? Some?
Maybe some international interlocutors, but mainly Egyptian.
Mm-hmm. Mainly Egyptian. Okay, so maybe in this case, the interlocutor is not a native speaker. Okay. Yes. So again, it's related to what we were saying earlier. Thank you, Wesam. Yomna, do the goals of your language curriculum or meet the needs of the students to use English as a global language? If you have...
Yeah, yeah, well, actually, using English as a global language, I'm not sure about this, but because as I told you before, that here in Egypt we basically focus on the American or British English. But anyways, definitely my students tend to talk to people all over the world. Maybe
So
if
then,
they
so maybe then, yes, maybe then it does so at the end.
yes,
You
maybe
know,
maybe
to some
this,
extent, exactly. So
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Even though
It's
maybe
just
the
that they are going to be translators, so
the form
yeah,
it's
they're
important.
studying linguistics and translation, yes. So
Okay.
definitely they might deal with people from different backgrounds and different accents. So yes,
Yeah.
maybe global Englishes would be
So
relevant to.
there is, but already, even though it's not formally, you know, as we're saying for language testing, even if it's not formally declared as part of, in this case, goal and objectives, you know, you are tackling that element.
Exactly.
So that's very important.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is that all these elements of curriculum, they can include somehow, some way, aspects of these elements. So when we talk about English for academic purposes, what do we teach in English for academic purposes? We teach reading, taking note skills. So it's really about English in academic context that we see, understanding different genres of language in terms of, you know, disciplines, how to structure assignments, prosaic formulas, how to, you know, contrast and compare. So it's academic writing in a certain way, okay? A global English is leading towards, global English is leading towards curriculum, would include for each of these elements some kind of exposure to global English from through the texts and the you know the tasks that we use. And with this, this is an example how an EAP curriculum could be developed to take into account global Englishes. An EAP curriculum that still performs the role of English for academic purposes and still includes the standards of the various you know, functions of the language in these academic purposes, but looks at the text from a different perspective and gathers text from different varieties. However, we've seen there are many barriers to this reality, and you know, research is still establishing ways, effects, and so forth. So some barriers to this innovation are, one, a lack of material. So if I am you know, an English for academic purposes tutor, where do I source all these materials? Language assessment, where how do I define my test, my assessment, if I don't have any source to use as inspiration as previous piloted test? Teacher education and training, education of English, future English language teachers is mainly, as you know, based on the various standards. And it's a diplomas and certifications such as CELTA or others. There's a huge engine there. We could call it a business, of course. It does train teachers, but it's a huge system that would need to be changed. There's still an attachment to standard English, very often called as part of the hidden curriculum. So even though it's expressed as non-standard based, or its syllabuses are maybe defined, or language tests or are defined as non-standard based, but communicative competence based, which you don't, if you talk about communication, it's intelligibility, its ability to engage in certain situations aside of the standard. So, and these are just some possible barriers. So I would like to know, what is your take on all of this? And I know this is a very particular topic, and because there's a specific context with its own, reality. But this is applied linguistics, and applied linguistics is all about innovation. So it's all about how things evolve. So so what's your take on all this? And ideas, suggestions, thoughts, please include, if you want, whatever you took from the curriculum design or language testing. So what's your take on all of this? I know it's again, it's the end of the summer school and you are tired, and I said, but this is a kind of a general question to kind of conclude the class and the school as well. And please don't run away. We have to take this beautiful screenshot, this photo. I'm preparing myself. So any comments on all of these, guys?
I would like to comment on
the
point of on the attachment to.
No, because we haven't heard anything from you all day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
The attachment to standard English, this part. I do believe that because we're afraid to experiment when it comes to English, because we're a little bit responsible of teaching a certain thing that has been there for hundreds of years. So risking to change it from just English to global Englishes, it's a risk, because as you've just mentioned, the lack of materials, language assessment, we don't have all of these things there. It's still a risk. We don't know if we actually applied it, where will we go with that.
That's an absolute reality. That's an absolute reality.
Exactly.
That's
so,
why
so we always go with the safe side. I use what I know and what's been there and been succeeding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Dina?
I think we don't have to separate global Englishes from English. I think they go part and parcel of each other. So why can't we try integrating both together and have a common ground between the two sides and experimenting new things, and at the same time going with whatever I know and I'm succeeding in. So I think they are part and parcel of each other. I can't have just global English.
I love the smiles. It's okay. It's beautiful. We don't need to laugh as well. At the end, it's a summer school, guys. This is not summer schools are meant to be, it's not only learning, it's a socializing. So yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. Yeah, it makes sense, and it resonates with other opinions I've heard so far. Maybe, I don't know, someone else. Mama?
Yes. Okay, now go ahead. Okay.
No, I was just asking myself, but yes.
I'll be very quick. But personally speaking, the most challenging barrier will be institutional, because as I said before, I don't have the freedom to adjust a curriculum or anything. So if it's hard to change someone's mentality, it will be much harder to change the mentality of a whole institution. Because everything is established and we've been using it for years, and to effect such a change would be very, very difficult. So, but hopefully doable.
Including the materials.
Yes, of course. I mean, institutional covers all of these barriers. Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's very interesting. No, I mean, again, so what it has been presented here to you was it's it's a perspective on things, and it's not, with this class is not being said it is wrong or right, or one should do this or shouldn't do that. However, it's English is an international language. English is a lingua franca. English is a global language. The fact that there are many varieties of English, and the fact that most of us would use English with non-English speakers. So that whether we it's a reality, and it's being increasingly, from you've seen earlier, from the social ethical perspective, it's being urged as a phenomena by research and academics to be considered. And so for us, it's a reality. So yeah. Any other thoughts? I think I've seen a hand raised somewhere, but I don't know, maybe I was wrong. Maybe, someone who, I don't know, anyone else? Oh, Mama asked something earlier, and I would love to hear you again before we go, because this is the last time for this summer school.
Okay, may I add something?
Yes, please.
Okay. So talking about here, one of the obstacles that we may face when we design a curriculum is the lack of materials. I know that Hussein, she pointed out to this, but basically I feel that this will be really difficult when it comes to teaching in schools, because they have to stick to specific book, and most of them mainly standardized, like American or British. But when it comes to higher education, we do have the flexibility. I mean, we don't stick to specific book. I can choose the materials that can give me the learning outcomes, or can achieve the learning outcomes. Here we teach students in the faculty of mass comm. We have to, or like, I really wish to add this. So like, it's a kind of a proposal that I'm applying for. So because they have to learn how to write film scripts and blocks, I'm proposing that we have to add this in the prep stage, like in English, in the English module, like how to write scripts, so we can bring them different scripts written by different writers, different styles, Japanese writers writing in English, like Nigerian writers writing in English, so they will be exposed to different writers when it comes to reading, for example. So
that's a very good point, and as well how, and the fact that even if there are limitations, if we look deeper, there are ways to actually find it. Exactly. If we, and again, did wish to somehow detach or gradually evolve in terms of how we view things. Yeah, that's thank you very much, Nuran. That's brilliant. Anyone else? And if not, I hope someone else would like to, comment. Who haven't I heard before we go? Amani, just to hear your voice.
Can I say something here?
Yes.
Okay. I can see that the possible barrier to innovation in Egypt, in concerning education in Egypt and learning, is the teacher education and training. I believe the cost of teacher training in Egypt is quite expensive for many Egyptians. I hear about courses like Celta and Delta. And I believe the fees for Celta is 27,000 Egyptian pounds.
A lot of money, I assume. It sounds so big.
It's a very I think many
around 2,000
cannot afford this cost.
Huge amount, yes, huge amount of money. Yes, yeah, definitely. And they cannot afford, you're saying,
some can afford, but I think the majority cannot afford this cost.
I think anyway, it's not, I think it's just, I mean, here as well, I think, to tell, like, it's a month, maybe more. So I think the cost is huge, and yes, that's
Yes.
yeah. I personally think that like training teacher locally as well, and not necessarily training as much as enabling teachers to research, to engage with research and with the new research and new results. So, you know, allowing that or enabling that is the teacher is able to constantly update and, you know, and learn if he or she has the time to do it or the resources to do it again. So we don't necessarily, I don't think necessarily like, obviously they're important, the big trainings, but there can be as well as long as one has the time and the resources and, you know, it's supported, desired, let's say. Thank you, Mama. That was lovely to hear you. I was really hoping to hear comments from everyone or listeners that I haven't heard their voice so far, but it was really nice and as well relevant.